Well, we're back. Did you miss us? Um, we have taken a week's break after last week. I do apologise for that. There was some things that came up which we couldn't really control, but we are back with the Tuning Podcast, where we obviously discuss the realms of music and all its various forms, guises, and song titles and genres. So we apologise to say for last week, but we are back.
Yes, we are back. And we're ready to go.
Yes, we are. So, we will introduce this week's theme, which you probably have already guessed by the title of the podcast. But in case it isn't quite clear, let's introduce it to you.
So this week's theme was, I think, my choice. It was so long ago that we decided it, but yes,
Yeah.
was my choice. And it's colours, so it's a song with a colour in the title. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. We wanted to see how, we originally thought, see how far we could push it, but no, we've stuck with, actual solid colours this time, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no boundary pushing this time around,
No.
which is...
Well,
which is
sort
quite
of with
good.
one of mine, but, you'll find
Yeah,
out.
sort of, but yeah. But we also have a really interesting question this week, actually, to discuss. It's actually not like a selection, it's more a debate this time, so stay tuned for that. As well as, of course, what songs we've been listening to over the last, 2 weeks now, because of our technical issues, which led to us not recording last week.
Yeah. Okay, so, without further ado, Harry, would you like to start this week?
Yeah, I'll start this week, why not? So, my first song on the whole list, I would say, is probably the most important one we will discuss this week. And I don't think that you could argue with me on that, can you?
Absolutely not. I will not disagree with you.
No, it is absolutely incredible. And the song is Black by Dave. It's one of the two best songs on possibly my third favourite album of all time, Psychodrama, which was released last year. In the song, Dave basically raps about the social inequalities facing our society, especially those facing black citizens, and how they have been oppressed and continue to be oppressed today. So it's about his life as a whole. So it's kind of it's semi-autobiographical, semi-historical. So it's got the mixture of the two elements perfectly coalesced into one extraordinary piece of art. And it's poignant, well-researched, cohesive, and wrapped with such conviction, really, about the subject. I mean, he clearly knows his stuff, and it comes across so convincingly. Hence why I couldn't really... When I was drafting up my list, that was the first song that went straight on there. There was no hesitation.
Yeah, no, I agree. Actually, the first time that I heard the song was his performance at the Brits. Was it the Brits, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was the Brits.
Performance at the Brits, good. That was where I actually, fell in love with the song. I really like it. And I think because it has such an important message and he conveys it so well.
There's all these little intricacies to it, and all these sub stories, and you it's not really lurching, but it always links in perfectly with one section to the next, and it's these little things which even I hadn't really considered before, but some things which I had obviously known about beforehand, and it's all of these little things just put together to create such a beautiful song. And you also added in the extra verse at the Brit Awards, basically slamming the country and praising the actions of one person who sadly lost his life, I believe, in a terrorist attack a couple of years back.
Yeah. I guess my question is sort of about the performance, because obviously it was also a very visual performance rather than just him rapping on the stage. So how do you think the visuals enhance the visuals of the performance enhance the music itself and the message behind it?
Very well. Dave was basically playing piano during this alongside the song's original producer, Fraser T. Smith, so it was a duet of the two. And all the images of the kind of the visions that you get put into almost by the stuff on the piano, which they portrayed onto it, it was just incredible to see. It all just transitioned into the next segment all perfectly. It transitioned into this, that, and the other, and it all aided the the storytelling aspect of it. And as you will have guessed by now, I am a sucker for storytelling if done correctly. And
Yeah.
I absolutely just think that all of these little, again, they thought this through so much. Like, it wasn't done overnight. It must have been planned like 3 or 4 months in advance and practiced spectacularly hard for that length of time as well. And it all came together as just a perfect fusion of the song and the message, and it just meant that it just worked. It just worked.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the song by itself is very, like, it has a strong statement to it, but with the visuals, it's like you can't really, argue with any of his points. They're right there in front of you.
Yeah, they are literally like, you can't like say, oh no, this isn't right or whatever. It is literally, this is what is happening. This is what is happening. Here are some newspaper articles on this subject. Here is this person's thing. Here is, Boris's exploits or whatever. And it's just incredible, really. And we might as well say it because you can never say it too many times. Black Lives Matter, and this song is just one of the best examples that I've heard promoting this cause.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of people also at the moment thinking this is only happening in America. And I think this song is proof that that's just not true.
Yeah, so I say, when I was drafting this up, there was no other option of what was going to be my number one spot. Like, it is from an album which I absolutely love. If you haven't listened to the album, go and listen to it, especially a song which will come up when we do a names segment on this podcast, which will come eventually. So I'll keep you in the know for that, but go and listen to the album if you haven't done so already, because it is brilliant. So my number 2 is a complete deviation from politics and social issues to one from the 60s. So we're taking it back 50 years to Jimi Hendrix's Purple Haze, which is a very peculiar song, and it was one of his first original compositions which actually broke into the mainstream, because he had performed Hey Joe, which made it famous, but Hey Joe was a song performed by somebody else. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but this was the world's first introduction to Hendrix's psychedelic writing style and confusing yet bizarre but funky and incredible attitude. So I originally thought the song was about being high on drugs, but apparently it's about someone who has fallen for someone else to such an extent that he is unsure as to his state of mind. And apparently he also wrote 1,000 words for the verses, did Hendrix, but most of them had to be cut out in order to fit with radio airplay. And it also features one of my favourite chords, which I didn't even realise was a stereotypical Hendrix chord, of the dominant 7th sharp 9. So for any music theory nerds out there, this one's for you. It's weird, but it's eclectic, but it's wonderful.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with everything you just said. It is a bit weird, but it's sort of become a sort of classic song that everyone knows, I reckon. I mean, that's how it's just one of the ones that I knew. But what do you think about the song, like, makes it a classic song? There's just like a few songs throughout history that have become classics. Or more generally, what do you think about songs make them classics?
Well, generally, God, that's a tricky question.
It's a pretty difficult question, but yeah.
Yeah, oh God, that's got me thinking. With this song in particular, I think it's because it was the seminal first song that Hendrix had done, which broke out. And I think that it set the tone for what was to come. I mean, Electric Ladyland is just it's a phenomenal album. It really is. It's not, Purple Haze isn't from Electric Ladyland, but it set the world up for what was to come. With this song, it's the fusion of the guitar work, it's the really weird effects at the end of the song, and all these, again, intricacies, these well thought through elements of the song that combine it together to make it such an incredible force. I guess it's the same thing with songs that actually do become classics. Either it's extremely catchy or well known for that purpose, or it's well done.
I think this might also tie in to our question, but there are some songs that I think are sort of meant to be listened to more deeply than others, and I think in terms of like catchy songs, they sort of become classics because people sing them a lot and they're more surface level. Whereas like
Yeah.
songs like this are meant to be listened to more intensely and sort of almost analysed within your own head, and then gone, this is actually a piece of musical genius.
Yeah. And
That makes
that's
sense, yeah.
what it is. Hendrix was just a phenomenal musician. He sadly lost his life at 27, part of the 27 Club, as is one of the other artists who features later on. But it's such a wonderful song. Again, it was one of the first, I think it was the first song actually that introduced me to Jimi Hendrix. It was from a live performance. I cannot remember for the life of me where it was, but he had a guitar solo at the end of it, and basically from that moment on I was hooked. And if I ever do find that recording wherever it is, I'll be very, very happy, because it's an amazing solo, I can tell you that much. But yeah, that is my number 2. My number 3 is another shift. We're moving back 50 years into the future, to 2015, I believe this was, with the song Gold by Sleeping with Sirens. Again, there are a few songs which I could have picked and maybe should have picked for this one, but I thought I'd go a little bit more emo with this. Maybe my first emo pick of the entirety of this podcast. So maybe I'm transcending into Sarah's world, but who knows? But this is a song which I discovered by virtue of it being featured on a soundtrack, because this was back in 2016 when my musical scope of knowledge was basically soundtracks and about 5 other songs. So, of course, I came to know this song quite well through, I believe, the Epitaph radio on Forza Horizon 3. And as Forza Horizon 3 is one of my favourite games, I kind of gelled with the soundtrack, and this was one of the highlights from it. It's a song which it symbolised their progression moving forward. They softened up their sound from their previous couple of albums, and it's a song about wanting to achieve your goals, and the vocalist Kellen Quinn basically looking back on the difficulties that he faced during his career. It shows off his vocal range brilliantly, I think, and it's not quite pop, but almost, I think. So it showed that they were moving in that direction.
Yeah, sure, right. I have issues with you saying it's emo. I just don't. I think they lost their emo sound. But you know what? It's fine. That's a conversation for another day.
I'm already in trouble.
It's fine. I just don't like it that much. I'm much more... I like their album. I think it's called Feel. It has the song Low on it. That was my favourite song from that album. But
okay.
I liked it before they started to soften up their sound, as you put it.
Yes.
But
they have done,
wondered.
certainly.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, yeah, I loved that old time. Anyway, my question for you is sort of a general question, because a lot of old emo artists seem to have like softened their sound or like become more pop, more mainstream. Why do you think they did that?
Money.
Honestly,
it's a vapid answer. It's a really vapid answer, but unfortunately, it is the case. I mean, you look at Bring Me the Horizon, for example, and look at how much their sound has softened since their debut in 2006.
Oh God, yeah.
It's gone from deathcore to metal to metalcore to rock to whatever their latest stuff is. I don't really know. And it's to try and broaden out their appeal and not just stick to their core stuff. And of course, I'm all up for music groups trying loads of different things. I'm all up for that, because that's the nature of music. You don't make the same thing over and over again, because you'll get tired of it, as will probably the listeners. So you make these variants, you make these differences, but they also will have done it maybe because of signing to a major record label, because I think this was their first album on Epitaph Records, sorry. So maybe that might have been a factor in it somewhere down the line. And I think that when an artist gets signed to a record label, it's not like there's expectations placed on them, but there's certainly more pressure to deliver for the label. Yeah,
no, I agree. I think a lot of people would say it's like selling out, but at the end of the day, the music industry is a business and they have to make money. So they're obviously going to make music that will, fit the general trends. Sell. And things that are going to sell. So I do understand why they've done it. I think some artists have done it better than others though.
Oh, undoubtedly.
And, they've still retained some of their sort of style but made it more poppy. Someone like, obviously I love Panic at the Disco, so I'm gonna bring them up. But
Of course.
a band like them, they've done so many different genres. Like, their Pretty Odd album is so strange, but like they've sort of done it in a way where they've retained the style, I think, retained their sort of musical
integrity.
Thank you, that's the word I'm looking for. Musical integrity, but have definitely made a jump into the mainstream. And I don't know if you agree, I just don't think Sleeping with Sirens did it in the same kind of way.
Well, I haven't listened to Sleeping with Sirens' older stuff, truth be told, so I can't really give an accurate description, but I do understand with what you're saying. I know that from listening to it, I wouldn't call the song like anything ridiculously special, but I also just quite like it in its own sense, especially when it hits the end and the drum beat kicks in. I think that's quite cool. But
yeah,
that's just me. And this is all subjective. You can form your own opinions on all this, and of course we will be collating all the songs, as we always do, into a Spotify playlist that we discussed this week and of course every other week. So go and listen to this one, and of course all the ones from the previous weeks if you haven't done so already. My fourth one, we're going all over the place. We've gone from last year to the 1960s to a few years ago, and then back to the 1970s again. So we are now moving back into classic rock with Black Dog by Led Zeppelin. This is very confusing as a song in terms of rhythm, because it's very difficult when you first listen to it to get your head around. I mean, you must have thought it was an absolute nightmare.
I mean, half of me was like, this is like really cool and like really different, but then the other half was like, just be normal. Like, what are you doing? But like, I really liked it overall. I think it worked really well. But
yeah, it is. I think they did it intentionally. From what I gather, having spoken to a couple of Led Zeppelin heads, i.e. my brother and my dad, they have both said that it was kind of meant to be like that in order to not have a song that people could dance along to. So it was a bit of a varied rhythms, the free a cappella vocal sections, and of course the response section. It's kind of a call and response between the vocalist a cappella and the guitar and drums, and it's confusing, but it's I thought it was just it's great fun to listen to, and it's a challenge to get your head around all these, again, really cool rhythms. Even Zeppelin can't do it themselves in live performances, which I thought was quite funny. They apparently get rid of some of the things like the turnover or the pauses and make it more rigid. So
yeah,
thankfully they got the recording right. But in case you're wondering why it's called Black Dog, it's literally because a dog wandered around the Headley Grange studios when they were recording it, which is only 20 minutes from where I live. So, at least I've got something going for me. But of course, it mentions no animals in the entire song, and it's about Plant's, Robert Plant, the lead singer's failed escapades with a so-called gold digger who was only interested in him for his money and his lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite confusing to listen to, but I think it worked really well. But I was just wondering, what do you think? Because there's obviously the bit with the a cappella vocals in the music bit. They rarely sing together and like play together.
Yes.
What do you think it would have been like without that? Do you think it would have had the same impact, even with the different, like the strange rhythms? Do you think it would have?
Do you mean in terms of the vocals being heard at the same time as the music? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, undoubtedly, because the melody of the or the riff is not in line with the vocal melody at all. It just would not work together. So they had to create the two separate entities and put them apart, in my opinion. If you put them together, then it would just be a harmonic mess, and it wouldn't sound good. But thankfully, they separated them and created a brilliant song from one of the most iconic albums Led Zeppelin 4 of all time. But yeah, if you put the two together, it would just be a catastrophe, I think.
I mean, what do you think if they'd have put, like, if they had have still had, like, the vocal bit and then the musical interjection, but then had something underneath the vocal bit still?
Again, it would have lost the freedom. It would have lost the kind of the arrhythmic, almost rubato or recitative like section. So once you get rid of that, it kind of loses its charm. If it was, I know they do it in live performances, and that's absolutely fine. But in the recording, if they did that, it would just be like, well, not like any other song, obviously, in the world, because that's just a complete lie. But it would it would be it would lose that appeal that it has of being floaty, of being free, of being all of these extra things. So I think if you lose that appeal, then you lose the appeal of the entire song. Hence why it's just such a blast, really.
Yeah. No, I agree. I was just doing a bit of a devil's advocate or whatever, if you like.
I can understand some people that may think, oh, no, I don't like this arrhythmic stuff. But for me, it's just, the arrhythmic stuff makes it what it is. So that's why I decided to put it down into number 4. And number 5 is, yet again, guess what? It's another stylistic change. Woo! And we have moved into the realms of electronic music with Pegboard Nerds' Pink Cloud. This is from their EP of the same name, released in 2015. And it's kind of a dreamy, future bass synth pop album, which I don't really think has the recognition that it deserves. It's quite an underrated EP in the catalogue of Pegboard Nerds, in my opinion. It's kind of about uplifting, defeating everything around you despite all the stuff that's going on that might be an adversary. So it's quite cheesy lyrics in a way, but it's the silk smooth production, I think, which does it for me. Like, the Nerds are known for like really hard-hitting, floor-thumping songs, but this shows their capabilities and proficiencies in producing melodic and soulful songs. So that was why I grew to really like it when I first heard it. And in fact, the EP itself, when it was released, was actually released to raise money for breast cancer awareness, and I think it raised £20,000 when it was released. So that was pretty good to see. With the initiative of Ruin Cancer, with a word that I cannot say due to explicit regulations.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an extra nice little quirk to this particular song, and yeah, really enjoy it.
I feel bad about saying I don't really like it now, but
Oh,
but no, I think that's a great thing.
you
and
don't like
they
like
raised-
cancer?
No. No, I think it. Okay, hear me out.
It's
I
fine.
think
I
it's
don't
great.
like one of the songs on the EP either.
I think it's great, and I'm sure the other songs are great. I just didn't. I gave this one a listen singularly without listening to any other things, so I wasn't influenced by anything. So I'm sure I'd like something else on the EP, and I'm really glad that they raised money for a good cause. However, I think I do agree with you. The production was really good and it was really nice and clean, but I didn't really like anything else about it. And for me, I wasn't really swayed by the production in the same way that you were. So I just wondered if there was like anything else about it that you liked, or was it purely the production and the rest of it was kind of a bit meh?
No, I don't mind the vocals at all. I don't think they're incredible, but I don't think they're really like awful, cheesy kind of thing. Like really cheesy rather. But it's when it hits the chorus and it's the combination of the two, I think. So there's no like bona fide drop, so to speak. It's a chorus. It's almost a pop song, and I just quite like when it hits that chorus point and it's the two combinations, and I think that's really cool. Although one other quirk which I really did like about this is that in the music video they basically mocked themselves with a fan in the video holding up a question saying, "Where the hell is the hard hitting dubstep stuff?" And I thought that was quite funny. Of course, this is a bit of a move away from that dubstep stuff, but in response to your question, the vocals are okay, but the production is incredible, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess like it was sort of like without that production value to it, it was sort of just like your classic pop song, which I think is why I didn't like it that much. But I can see why people like it. Like, I'm not dissing that. And then also, if you're like a fan of electronic music, you will really, really appreciate that production a lot more than say I did.
Yeah, I think if you're looking for a song without many vocals from that EP, which has also very good production, go and check out Emoji, because that's also a very good song. Very few vocals, and again, brilliantly produced. It's a similar style, and I think that would be one that you would probably check out if you're wanting a bit less pop and a bit more electronic based stuff from that EP. Or the Fire in the Hole VIP remix, which is very hard hitting. So either or, but of course, again, that's for you to decide, for you to make up your own minds, and we both have clearly differing opinions, but that's just how it is. That's the power of music for you.
Exactly.
So those are my 5 colour choices. So we'll move on to Sarah's 5 colour choices.
Yeah, they're quite different to Harry's, but that's okay. That's
As
why
is
we do
always
the podcast. Exactly.
That is literally the entire reason why we do this.
My first song is, everyone knows the original song, so my first song is Back to Black. Obviously the original, it's by Amy Winehouse. A really, really good song in its own right. However, I picked a cover version of the song, and the cover is by Sam Fender, and he did it for the Radio 1 live sessions, I think just earlier this year. So obviously the original was written by, yeah, exactly. The original was written by Mark Ronson, and it's sort of about being in a relationship and then breaking up, and then just going back to what you know. Like, he'll go back to her, and I'll go back to black. Sort of like going back to the mundane, like, what you know, and trying to figure that out without being in a relationship. But I think, I really, really like the original. I think it's really well done, obviously. But I think this cover is also, I'm not saying it's better, it's just a different spin on the song. He makes it sound a lot darker than the original, and he also has a really, really unique voice, which is quite emotional. I think he has like a lot of emotion in the voice, and also the fact that it's live enhances that more, so there's no like effects over it or anything. So yeah, that's why I picked that song.
I was on the fence with this one. I much prefer the original. I'm not going to say I'm an acolyte for it, but I'm definitely someone who really liked the original song by Winehouse, and I wasn't sure if the stripped back feel that Fender provides, which is obviously his style, that's fine, I understand that. I don't know if it worked well with the message. I don't know why. I just think that it's kind of it's kind of meant to be a mixture of uplifting in terms of the music and depressing in terms of the lyrics.
Yeah.
And I think having the two combined, so making it only depressed or only depressing, that kind of ruined the whole idea of it for me.
Okay. I do see that, definitely, and yeah. I'm not saying that it is a better version than the original. It's just different.
A different version.
And
yeah.
That, you know, you could listen to potentially if you like Sam Fender.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like a question in my mind, at least. It's like, do you think that this also works in terms of Sam Fender's overall discography? If you've heard a lot of that, like, does it work in terms of his own style really well, or is it kind of an outlier but a mixture?
I think it works pretty well. I think it's more of a, obviously, like an acoustic version of what he would do normally. So like what's the song that I really like? Pound Shop Kardashians, I think that's his song off his album Hypersonic Missiles, which is a really good album. That's the only one I can like pinpoint to like explain in terms of this, if that makes sense.
Right.
I saw got all of the rest of the album sounds really good. He has an indie sound, an indie sort of rock sound, I'd say. Don't know if I'd go that far, but and I think this has like a stripped back version of what he does. So I think, like with the other cover, the Walk Like an Egyptian cover, that again I don't think you liked that much, but it's sort of taken a song and put his own spin on it. And yeah, no, I love the original. I don't think I loved it as much as a lot of other people. Like it was one of the ones like I listened to and really, really enjoyed, but I wasn't like a massive Amy Winehouse fan. Like I liked her stuff, but I wasn't like, you know, a diehard fan. So I think this is why I can allow this cover. I'm sure a lot of people who really like her would be like, this isn't right, this sounds completely wrong. Which is totally fine. I fully respect them for that. I just think this is a good cover of the song. My second song, again going back in time to the 70s, is a song called Goodbye Yellow Brick Road by Elton John. I only discovered this song recently, which is really weird. Like, I knew it and I would like sing along to it, but it'd be one of those ones I was like, what is this song called? It turns out it's
probably the only words you can actually make out. Yeah.
I mean, I knew the bit when there's like no words, where he's just like,
Yes.
you know, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm sort of the
Vocables.
chorusy bit. Yeah, the vocables bit. Thank you, that's the word I'm looking for. I only knew that bit, and I'd sing that bit all the time, and I'd be like, well, what is this song actually called? Because I don't know any words from it. So I couldn't find it. Anyway, so this, obviously, the Yellow Brick Road is an image from The Wizard of Oz. It's a big part of The Wizard of Oz. And the song was rumoured to be about Judy Garland. Interesting.
Right.
But the lyrics talk about, like, giving up a life of opulence for one just in a rural, nice setting. Which I don't know if that applies to Judy Garland or not, so potentially. For me, I really like the song because I like the chord progressions in the song. They sort of go to places, again, you don't expect, and that's what I really, really like. Especially at the beginning of the vocables bit. It jumps from, I think, like an F major centre to D flat major. So it, like, takes this massive leap from somewhere completely different. And I guess the only thing I could link was, like, it sort of takes you on a journey, like a journey down the Yellow Brick Road. That was all me.
Imagery.
That was all me. That is, no one said that. That was just me.
Okay.
So that's probably not right, but yeah. And my favourite bit is the vocables bit, because it just sounds really dreamy, and it is a complete contrast to the rest of the song, but it ties into the song really nicely.
Do you think maybe the vocable section is kind of like, it's such a massive switch up, which I also really enjoyed, but it's such a massive switch up to almost bring a kind of madness to it. Do you think that madness is meant to almost bring an imagery of The Wizard of Oz, considering its links to the original film?
Yes. I mean, obviously we can't say what Elton John was thinking, but I think it does tie in really well, because it, the first time, like, it happens, it's a massive shock, and it sounds quite almost magical, and it could be tied to the first moment when Dorothy is, like, steps out of her house when she's in the Land of Oz, into that sort of magical, colourful moment. Potentially, that's what I sort of took from it for the first time. And then it starts to normalise a bit more when she sort of gets used to it, if you like. So, like,
yeah,
there's the big switch up, and then it ties into the bit when he sings Goodbye Yellow Brick Road for the first time. It goes from the vocals bit to that pretty smoothly. So that could be the bit when she's, like, walking down the Yellow Brick Road, if you like. I don't know how far I'm looking into this. I could be going too far into this, but I think...
We could be speculating way too deeply, but
oh no, we
fine.
definitely are. But it's great. I think songs are meant to be, like, interpreted however you want to interpret them. There's some good covers of the song as well. I like listening to covers of older songs. That's something I've got into kind of recently. So the Queens of the Stone Age did a cover for the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, like, revival album thingy. There's a lot of people that did covers of their songs. And then Keane and Faultline did a version together. So Faultline does a lot of covers of old songs and invites, like, other people to sing on them. And Keane was on this one. And actually, that's my favourite cover version. I think Queens of the Stone Age, I like it. It just makes it a bit too, like, his voice doesn't really suit the vocables bit, which is what I was listening out for. Whereas Keane's voice is much more like...
Yeah, Keane's voice, I haven't heard that cover per se, but I would definitely think that the Keane vocalist would be definitely someone who could do that well.
It's a lot... I don't know if you'd like it that much, but, like, it's a lot calmer. It has that magical quality throughout the song, which I really like about it. And obviously, in the film, in the Rocket Man film, so Taron Egerton did a version of it as well, which is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
So my third piece is Piano Blues No. 3 by Aaron Copland. So yeah, it's a really cool piano piece. I really like it. It was written in 1948. So interestingly, there's 4 movements to it. And the first 2 movements are written in the 20s, in the 1920s. And then the second 2, so 3 and 4, were written in, I think, 47 and 48, which is kind of cool. So the No. 3 has, like, they have little they have words to describe each movement. So the first one's freely poetic, and the second one's soft and languid, which I have no idea what that means.
Basically, it's kind of like aphysical, not really moving that much.
Okay, cool.
So it's quite
that
slow.
That makes more sense. The third one is, which is this one, is muted and sensuous. And the fourth one is with bounce. To me, you know, if you think of like a blues song and then listen to this, you can see some parallels. Like there are some chords that, you know, some blues chords in it, but it doesn't sound like your traditional blues. It's a very slow, nice piano piece. I think for me, what I like about it is the chords are just super interesting. They're really kind of strange chords used. So it's like there's no real melody throughout. It's just based on parallel chords, and then there's like grace note and really low piano note interjections in the chords. And I just think the whole piece is it's kind of repetitive, which like a lot of people have mentioned to me that that's why they don't like it. But I just think if you stick it out, it has it's a really pretty piece.
Yeah, I think so. It is a pretty piece. I mean, the last two chords I absolutely loved. I didn't know what the chords were, but I just listened. I was like, my God, I'm a sucker again for a beautiful chord, and
Yeah.
I thought it was quite similar to a Haywire song, Transient. So it's kind of like more ambient reverb, but simplistic and laid back. So it's got those characteristics, and because of that, I wanted to ask if you think that this was a foresight into minimalism because of its repeated cell and stuff like that.
I don't know whether I know enough to comment on that, but I think minimalism generally has like repetitive bits, and there's things like like techniques such as like phase shifting and note addition and, you know, things like that, and those aren't really evident. I guess the repetitiveness of it may have been a very early start to minimalism, but minimalism generally has a similar line throughout the whole piece, with like subtle small changes, which does change the piece over a long period of time, whereas I think this has repetitive sections that return. So I'd say it's repetitive, so maybe like the very early starts of something maybe might have influenced someone in some way to start minimalism, but in the general grand scheme of things, I don't think it was a very important piece for minimalism or the start of minimalism.
I was just listening to it and I was just like, I can definitely hear some foresight into minimalism, but again, that was just because it was a thing which was repeated and then changed into a different key and then repeated and repeated again. So I mean, it wasn't say that. I would not say that it therefore makes it bad. It just meant that I was like, ooh, okay, that's a bit of a prescient sign of things to come. So that was why I was like, okay, interesting.
Yeah, I do see where you're coming from, and it could have been a very, very early start to minimalism and the ideas of minimalism. And I said it may have inspired some people in some way, but I don't know if it's in that sort of. It's obviously not in the like list of minimalist pieces or whatever, but it could be an inspiration for someone. Obviously, I don't know enough about that side, but I do hear it. Okay, massive change up. My fourth song is a song. My last two songs actually have the same title, and I thought it'd be interesting to compare them a little bit. They're very, very different.
Compare and contrast. Yes,
exactly. The first song is called Gold, and it's by a band called Vinyl Theatre. I hadn't heard of the band. I literally just put on Kerrang when I was a teenager, very young teenager, and it came up, and I was like, oh, this is a good song. This is pretty good, and I've listened to it like ever since. So there's not much. It's a very like unknown song because it was released before they signed to a label. So a lot of their newer stuff has more information on it. But this was like, I think, on their first album before they were signed to Fueled by Ramen, which has bands like Panic at the Disco and Paramore and 21 Pilots and like all the classic quintessential emo bands on it.
when I was listening to it, I was like, this is definitely something I not like I've heard before, but it reminded me of a band, and for the life of me, I cannot remember the name of that band, which is very annoying. But yeah, like I really enjoyed the song as a whole, and I really gel with all like the riffs and the drum beats and stuff like that straight away. And I just wanted to ask, like gold is quite a common color theme in songs. I mean, I've had one, and you've got two that are called gold. Like, is it always meant to be a positive symbolism in music? Hence why, therefore, it's used so much. I mean, obviously, gold medals are the best things you can win. I know, for anyone absolutely basically saying that, but also, like, can it be used negatively? Maybe
I'm yet to hear it being used negatively. I think in this song, they it's not necessarily a positive song. I mean, the lyrics are kind of confusing, but like, there's one bit where it goes, "At least I have found my gold." So I guess in this way, it's like, well, life might be quite rubbish, but at least I've found my gold, whatever that may be in the context of this song. So I think especially in the songs we've chosen, they're all used in a positive way. I'm yet to hear one that's used in a negative way, because gold is such a rare, like, precious thing, I guess. So it has those kind of connotations.
So I actually think I have heard one, which I have brought up on this podcast before, and it would have made my list if it wasn't for the fact that I brought it up before. But it's Death Cab for Cutie's Gold Rush, and it's obviously about, like, you know, them digging down and, like, trying to search for gold, but therefore ruining the atmosphere of the city that he lives in. So I think it's kind of like the depraved version of gold. Obviously, like, you know, oh, we're searching for it because it's more profitable, but used in a more negative context in that sense. But I think this song is definitely it's negative to positive.
Yeah, I think while it has like the connotations of like being quite precious and rare and, you know, expensive, it also has the connotations of like greed and people, like, you know, doing anything to get it. Like, I mean, I'm gonna bring a Disney into this, but I watched Pocahontas the other day, and no, let me finish. It has a good message, and I brought I watched Pocahontas the other day, and the whole, obviously it's about like the English going over to America, and they basically just went there to get the gold, and then all the songs are like about, you don't need gold, you have nature, like, just appreciate what you have. So I guess that's kind of like gold in a negative way. I don't think they explicitly mention it in a song, but like, it has those two sides to it, I guess. One more point I wanted to add, there's like, I really liked the contrast between the sort of heavier drums, guitar, and then the really understated vocals. I think he has like a really like calm voice, and also the synth bit, and it's really evident in the bridge before like the last chorus, and it all sort of goes a bit crazy, but good crazy.
I agree. I think, I mean, it's the best song that Sarah sent me so far.
Yes, so, I have won. I'm kidding.
Yeah, so go. You haven't won, because I do like alternative stuff, but go and give it a listen. Yeah, because it is really good. I do recommend this one.
And my final song is also called Gold, and I think it's one that you'll all know. It's by a band called Spandau Ballet. Absolute classic song. Lovely and upbeat and fun. But I thought what was really interesting about this song that you might not know is they've got a quote from one of the people who worked on the song, Gary Kemp, and he said, "There's no point to writing a great melody and not knowing what the title is." So, the song and the meaning of the song originated from the title rather than writing a song and then doing the title. It was the title that came first, then they put the song together. So in terms of like the meaning of the song, I guess it's like always believe in yourself and stuff like that, but there's no like actual meaning. It's sort of just like I guess the positive side we just talked about, you know, positive side of being like rare and precious and like all that stuff. So it's like the whole meaning is like the positiveness and the connotations that come with gold. I think generally it's just a really uplifting song, and it's one of the ones you just sing along to at like an 80s party, or, you know, at any party in general.
Yeah, I wrote down this song with an ellipsis after, because I didn't recognise it at the start, and I got to the chorus and I thought, oh yeah. but I'm also not gonna lie. I thought the song was called Indestructible.
Fair enough.
I didn't even pick up the word gold in the lyrics of this one. So we flipped the other way around. I didn't pick up the lyrics in this one, but I did in the other one.
I mean, he literally goes like, "You are gold, gold." It says it twice.
I know.
In a row.
I genuinely. I don't know what I thought he said. It must have been like I thought it was like like a vocable.
Oh, okay. No, okay, fair enough. I do see that.
Like, you know what I mean?
I guess it's because I know the song pretty well.
Yeah, that's fair. And I don't think it's awful per se, but it is obviously very catchy. So do you think again, we're linking into a question you asked me earlier, like do you think that's why this song is a staple in comparison with like maybe other 80s hits that didn't quite make the timelessness of this song, for example?
Yeah, I think so. Like at that time, they were just producing quite a lot of hits. I don't know. Yes, it is pretty catchy. Like we were saying before, there's either like the really catchy songs that stay around that are sort of to be enjoyed on a more surface level, and then there's the ones that are meant to be enjoyed deeper. And I think this is one that's meant to be enjoyed. Or not saying that that's bad, just enjoying it on a surface level. But like, it's just that's what it's meant for, and it's meant to be catchy and a song that you play and like listen to and enjoy at a first listen rather than listening really intensely to it
and trying to pick up all the details of it. Yeah,
exactly. So I think it's partly because it's so catchy and partly because Spandau Ballet at that time were producing hits, so that was just another one on their list. Oh, fun fact, Tony Hadley, who's the lead singer of Spandau Ballet, actually he lives in my county, which is pretty cool, and he lives near me, which is pretty cool. He came to my school, I think, on a open evening, and it was the one open evening that I missed, and I was very upset because all my friends were like, "Oh, we met Tony Hadley, we got a picture, and we got signed stuff for us." But yeah, no, it's pretty cool. Anyway, so that's the end of my list.
So now we move on to probably the first question, which we've had to give a massive amount of thought. Not saying that any of the questions beforehand were bad, because they weren't. It's just that this one was a complete switch up. I love using that phrase. I know we've used it many times, but it is from what we've normally done. So this question was sent in by Alex. So thank you very much for that. Yeah, genuinely thanks, because is a great question. And he's basically said, he's asked us if we can discuss whether active listening is a skill, whether it can be developed, or whether you can get more out of music from this. So we've kind of touched on this already so far with things like, you know, the surface level of songs and maybe the deeper levels, like in Purple Haze, for example, with all the little small parts added in here and there. So I actually think that active listening is a skill. Because as I've said before, I do this album a day thing as part of my New Year's resolution, which is still going somehow. But I find that when I'm doing something else whilst listening to the album, like which has to make me take my concentration away, I miss the song in question. And it might have been, I'm not like missing it completely, because obviously I do listen to it, but I miss like the certain parts of it that might make me like it. Whereas if I'm doing something that doesn't require too much concentration, or something that, or not doing anything at all, I can listen to it a lot more and just think, oh, okay, this is what it means, or these are the small bits, these are the small parts, and it makes me more interested in it. So I think that active listening is something that you can actually, you know, develop and enhance and make better.
Oh, it's such a shame, because I wanted to have some kind of debate. I wanted one of us to be like, no, it's not. But I agree with you. Like, I think it's, okay, I do slightly disagree, because I think it's only useful for certain songs. Like I mentioned before, if it's that sort of, if it's a song that's like easy, like and pleasing to listen to at a first listen, generally there's not much under the surface, and it was made to be enjoyed at that surface level for a general audience of people who aren't necessarily musically knowledgeable. Whereas there are some songs that have a lot of musical substance to them that require you to listen more intensely to actually appreciate what's going on. So yes, I agree that it is a skill that is, you know, necessary for some songs.
I think also, I actually disagree with you on that bit particular, because if you're passive listening, then you're not really, or listening rather, you're not really picking up I know obviously like there are some bits which are not meant to pick up anything, but you're still not enjoying the song for what it is. And if you know the song, of course, like if you know it really well, then you can passive listen to it and you know all the like little bits and bobs. But if I'm listening to something for the first time and I'm passive listening, then it'll often just kind of filter out and shape out, when even if it's not meant to be a song which you're meant to listen to intensely, you can still listen to it and think, you know what, I really enjoy this, or I don't enjoy this for this, that and the other. Like any song, like the songs that you send through to me, I don't just think like, oh, okay, I'll listen to them in the background and not really think about them at all. Like I will listen to them, I'll sit down and I'll make notes on them and make sure that I get everything that I want to get right.
Yeah. Okay, then do you think then there's like different levels of active listening? So do you think then there's like, so in that respect, do you then, instead of like doing something else, you sit and listen to something and then go, oh, I like that or I don't like it? Do you think there's that level, and then there's like another level of like listening to it, picking out all the musically like nice bits, picking out chord progressions, picking out rhythmic techniques and stuff?
Yes, agreed. I agree with that. Like there's levels to it. Like there's the listening side, which is just background. There's the hearing side, which is kind of hearing it for itself, and enjoying it and or not enjoying it for whatever reason. And then there's the active hearing, which is okay, this is what I think of this song. These are all the little parts, the small parts within it. And these are all the things which I can pick out of, like, you know, chord progressions or melodies or rhythms or whatever it might be. So I think it does help you to like get more from the song itself, even if it is meant to be this kind of shallow S Club 7 pop song.
Yeah. Okay. I got one final question actually. Do you then need to be musically knowledgeable to be like to actively listen to things?
No, I don't think so, because like I know this is a pretty basic answer and that's fine, but rap music, whilst there aren't like many, you know, intricacies in the beat maybe that is created, sometimes there are on many other occasions, like beats aren't more with samples and stuff like that. But even for someone who isn't musically versed in terms of talent and knowledge, they can still get the music, they can still get the lyrics, they can still hear what they're saying, and even if it means just basically singing along to it in the car or something, that's still active listening, because you're picking up on the lyrics and you're picking up what they're saying and you know, singing them back or rapping them back when you hear it in the car or at home or wherever it might be. Like not obviously just rap, of course, this can apply to any genre, and of course like orchestral music if you listen to it, and you can pick out, you know, the melodies, you can hear the various different things within it. And whilst it might not be as obvious to someone who isn't as musically versed, it can still be picked out.
Yeah. I think I do agree with you to some extent, but I think having a musical knowledge for things like classical music, where there's often like a hidden meaning within some chord progressions, or like Shostakovich spelling his name in a motif, like that is things that you wouldn't necessarily pick up on unless you had that musical knowledge. I don't think it's necessary to have it with some things. I don't think it's necessary to go that deep unless you're really interested in it. But it is sometimes useful to pick up hidden messages and stuff. But I don't think it's necessary to enjoy the music, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think it's necessary to enjoy or not enjoy the music, because then you can understand. Like, you just think, okay, this isn't suitable to what I listen to, or I
meant like the highest level of active listening. I don't think that is necessary to enjoy the piece, but it's interesting sometimes to pick up on like hidden messages and like really cool chord progressions and stuff.
Yeah, I've said it before on this show, I love a bass line. And like that's the thing which I often actively listen out for. For example, in the song, when we mentioned it last episode, with Lady Hear Me Tonight by Mojo, like, I love the bass line in that song. And, like, if you hadn't really picked up on the bass, like, if you're, like, someone like me who literally focuses on the melody or the chords or whatever, it might not be something that jumps out at you straight away, but for me, what jumped out was the bass line in the chorus. And indeed, in another song called Struck by Televisor, which again has a really funky bass line. Go and listen to that song because I know you'll love it. And every time I listen to the song, like, I don't focus on the melody that much. I focus on the bass line because of how good it is. So people's ears will be attuned to various different things. So that's, I guess, the beauty of active listening.
And then for me, like, the bass line bit is definitely like chord progressions that go somewhere. I've noticed, even just by doing this podcast, I've noticed that. Like, songs I really like Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and I'm not necessarily a massive Elton John fan, but that song is because of those chord progressions that go to places that you just don't expect them to. And if I didn't have that active listening, I don't think I would have really properly heard it.
It would kind of just have been like, you would have got to the, like, you've been in the verses, and then you would have got to the vocable section, and it would just been like, oh, okay, why are we here?
Yeah. I don't think I would have appreciated it as much.
So regrettably, well, I mean, I say regrettably, but like, in terms of the question, honestly, this is one of the best questions we've had so far.
Well, I mean, it's the question that opened up a debate, rather than, like, the other questions we've had are sort of about, like, us, which is great, and, like, what's your favourite piece, and, like, all that kind of stuff, which is amazing. This question opened up a wider debate, and there's still much more that we could have spoken about, but I don't have 3 hours.
Yeah, I mean, when Alex sent through the question, he sent through about 3 paragraphs, and whilst all of them are really interesting, we might go into, you know, more active listening debates down the line. Based on the questions he sent through. Those are the ones from the first paragraph, so we thought we could combine them and come up with a good debate. And of course, you might differ from us, so let us know what you think as well, because it's always interesting to hear what other people think about active listening.
And if there's a debate or a question you want us to, like, talk about that's not necessarily active listening related, give us a comment, give us a message, and we'll do that.
Yes. But yeah, that's the question/debate section. And so now we move on to the final bit, which is basically stuff that we've been listening to over what is now the past 2 weeks as opposed to the past week.
Yeah. So, my first song, actually, I changed it about 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago.
Controversial.
Which is controversial, but I was on over the past 2 weeks, I've been on a bit of a throwback mood, you know, and then I completely forgot about those artists until I heard it on the radio just this morning, and I was like, oh, so it's sort of tying into what I have been listening to this week, but it wasn't necessarily
right.
Anyway, and it's a song called These Words by Natasha Bedingfield.
Now, is that the one? Is that the famous one?
Yeah, she also did Unwritten, which a lot of people know.
Okay,
but I picked These Words. I don't know why, just because I heard it. I really like her voice, and she's done a lot of, like, calmer songs as well that I really, really like, but this song was, like, a famous one. She also did A Pocket Full of Sunshine, which a lot of people know. That was a bit later, but I was a massive Natasha Bedingfield fan as a child, so this is a massive throwback for me, and it's just a really fun, catchy song to sing along to. So yeah. My second song, bit weird where it came from. It's Hip to Be Square by Huey Lewis and the News. I could have picked a few songs, but this is because I basically have a film poster, and I'm going through, like, scratching off different films to watch, and I watched the film American Psycho, which I really enjoyed. It's a really, really good film, but there's a lot of 80s and, like, 70s, 80s music, because he has a very, he talks about the music quite a lot. Like, he played this song, I mean, before he murdered someone, which wasn't very nice, but he played this song, and he had, like, a lot of, he talked a lot, and he had, like, a lot of musical commentary about the song, so the music does feature quite heavily in the song, which I really enjoyed. No, it features quite heavily, sorry, in the film, which I really enjoyed. Heavily in
the song, that's kind of the...
No. The music features quite heavily in the film, which is why, it was just another reason I enjoyed the film. He likes his 80s music. So yeah, he put this song on and then started talking about Huey Lewis and the News and, like, their musical influences and, like, other songs they've done, their good albums and stuff, which is, I think, is really, really cool, and it's a really nice touch to the film. But yeah, this song was a pretty key moment in the film, so that's why I put it in there. And my final song is a band that actually one of my friends introduced me to, and it's a song called Can't Cool Me Down by Car Seat Headrest.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I've been listening to this like on repeat. I should have found it a long time ago because their album came out, it was kind of recently, but not that recently. But I had it on my playlist and I just kept sort of skipping it, and then I thought, you know what, I'm going to listen to it. And I really like this song. It's really like indie pop vibes to it, and they have a really, really unique sound. So yeah, if you like that kind of thing, I highly recommend their new album.
So mine obviously are completely separate, because that's how it always works. I've got actually one that Sarah recommended me a couple of weeks back, which is Bring Me the Horizon's Shadow Moses. So
Yes.
I listened to the album Sempiternal, and I really liked it, and Shadow Moses is the highlight. Like, it's jumped straight to the top of my on repeats playlist on Spotify within about a week of me hearing it, because I've really enjoyed it. It's just really like heavy and thrash, but it's got the melodic aspect to it as well, which I love the balance between. Second song is Laszlo's My Way. So he's one of my favourite electronic artists, and he was originally on Monster Cat, which is one of my favourite record labels, but I think he's left it now. And he released a song My Way last month, and it's a very similar like Laszlo style, kind of melodic, well produced, and it's not just there because, you know, floor thumping or whatever, but it's got a melody to it and it's got a character, which is what I like about a lot of his music. So that's a song I've been listening to. My third one is from a new mixtape by one of my favorite artists, The Streets, which is called the mixtape is called None of Us Are Getting Out of This Life Alive, and the song is called I Wish You Loved You As Much As You Love Him, trying to rival Panic at the Disco for needlessly long song titles. And
Yeah.
it's a garage song with a really bouncy like beat to it, and kind of it's really weird but and eclectic. It's got a mixture of a female rapper singer and a male singer with a lot of autotune, but I think it's just quite eclectic and quite weird. So that's another one. And my final one is kind of a hip hop trap R&B song called 97 by Kojey Radical. Again, similar to the one which Sarah was on about, the one by Car Seat Headrest. It's a song that I've also had in my playlist for a while, and I kept on skipping, and I thought, okay, I'll listen to it once and just see what I thought of it. And ever since that, I've been hooked. It's really catchy, and it's got a really cool beat alongside it, so I've been jamming along to that for the last week. But unfortunately, that might exclude it from the numbers section of the podcast, which we will eventually do, which is kind of annoying. So I might have just dug myself in my grave, but that's fine. That's fine. I'm sure there are plenty of other number songs out there. But yeah, that's the stuff that, obviously not all of it, but some of the stuff that I've been listening to over the last week. And that pretty much does it.
Yeah.
Pretty much does it for this week's edition. We will be back next week. We will be,
Yes.
because I have no work restrictions now, so that's all fine, and we'll be all good on that front. So don't worry, we'll be back. Even though a lot of you will have probably tuned off by this point, considering the statistics on Spotify have said that that's the case. But in any case, yes, thank you very, very much for listening. Do tune next week when we have a different theme, which we haven't decided yet. But yeah, thank you very much for listening, and until next time,
We'll see you then.